July already. Let's see, Tuesday is Christmas in July, right? July 25th. We recently had the joy of paying off our second vehicle. So we have no car payments right now. And we have the title of our Kia van in Strong. We have yet to receive the title for the Honda Civic, but it'll soon arrive. Just something about that, isn't it? When you get that thing paid off, you don't owe any more money on it. You know what that's like. Even better than paying something off is having something paid off for you. You ever have that experience? There's something called the Federal Student Loan Forgiveness Program. And it says under certain circumstances, the federal government will cancel all or part of an educational plan known as loan forgiveness. But to qualify, you must perform volunteer work, certain specific volunteer work, perform military service, teach or practice medicine in certain types of community, or meet other criteria specified by the forgiveness program. I asked Lisa, I said, did we have that? And she said, I think there was forgiveness for teachers, but that's it. Now the cancellation of debt goes much deeper than just material debt, money debt. Sometimes we build up a debt emotionally. And let me explain, well, better yet, let Jesus explain that to you through a story. It's in Matthew chapter 18. Now for this reason, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who wished to settle accounts with his slaves. And when he began to settle them, one who owed him 10,000 talents was brought to him. But since he did not have the means to repay, his Lord commanded him to be sold, along with his wife and children, all that he had, and repayment be made. So the slave fell to the ground, prostrating himself before him, saying, have patience with me, and I will repay you everything. 10,000 talents. I'll pay back everything. Really? And the Lord of that slave felt compassion and released him and forgave him the debt. 10,000 talents. But the slave went out and found one of his fellow slaves who owed him 100 denarii. And he seized him and began to choke him, saying, pay back what you owe. And so his fellow slave fell to the ground and began to plead with him, saying, have patience with me, and I'll repay you. But he was unwilling, and went and threw him in prison until he should pay back what was owed. So when his fellow slaves saw what had happened, they were deeply grieved, and came and reported to their Lord all that had happened. And then summoning him, his Lord said to him, you wicked slave, I forgave you all that debt because you pleaded with me. Should you not also have had mercy on your fellow slave in the same way that I had mercy on you? And his Lord, moved with anger, handed him over to the torturers until he should repay all that was owed. 10,000 talents. My heavenly Father will also do the same to you, if each of you does not forgive his brother from your heart. Wow. Here's the scoop. Jesus was discussing proper relationships, specifically when someone sins against you. What do you think, Peter? So Peter, trying to impress Jesus, said 7 times. Because Judaism taught you should forgive 3 times. So Peter thought he was doing good 7 times. Jesus was not impressed. He said, not 7 times, but 70 times 7. Literally? No. In other words, you should always be ready to forgive. That's what he's teaching. And to drive home the point, he tells this story to forgive. So the king was settling accounts, and one guy owed 10,000 talents. Now that is, I emphasize that because that is a lot of money. We're talking in our language, probably millions of dollars, upwards to $10 million he owed. He's going to work all that off? I don't know what kind of occupation he had, but that was a pretty big bill. He couldn't pay it, so the king commanded that he and his wife and children all be sold to help pay off that debt. And so what did he do? He fell on his knees and begged, "Oh, please, have mercy on me." And that wonderful king said, "I will. I forgive your debt." And so that servant immediately went out and found someone who owed him 100 denarii. 100 denarii in our monetary system comes up to about 20 bucks. And he grabbed them by the scruff of the neck. "Pay back what you owe." And so this guy did exactly what he did. He fell on his knees and begged, "Forgive me and I'll pay you back." He had more of a shot at paying back the 20 bucks than that guy had paying back 10 million, don't you think? And so as you look at the debt that the first guy had canceled, the relatively little debt owed to him, and the plea of his fellow servant, his response is not what you would expect. You would expect the same grace given to him that he would extend to his fellow servant. But it was not. He would not forgive the debt. Did not rest well with the other servants. Naturally, they were bitter toward him, and they actually reported back to the king what had happened. Well, that didn't rest too well with the king either. And the king summoned the first servant back, told him he should have forgiven as he was forgiven, and because he didn't forgive, because he didn't extend mercy, he would not receive mercy, and the king, it's good to be king, isn't it? Reinstated the 10,000 talent debt back on his servant because he was not merciful and forgiving. And Jesus makes the point of the story. And if you miss the point, what's left? Here's the point. This is what will happen to everyone who does not forgive from the heart. You see, if someone receives pardon from God, he is obligated to extend forgiveness to others. Seems like our natural response, our human nature, is to condemn, right? Notice the man took the guy with the $20 debt by the neck. And that was a tradition of the Romans and the Greeks. That if someone owed you something, you'd take them by the throat and drag them off to court. And you could almost see this guy with his hand on that servant's $20 debt neck saying, "Honest people pay their debts," requiring something of him that he wasn't willing to do. How like us? How easy is it us to find fault in other people? Mistakes in others are sins. Mistakes in us are only faults. Harshness in others is simply frankness on my part. Selfishness in others is called thriftiness when it comes to us, right? Even in the church, we expect more from others than we do ourselves. We expect others to take the lead. We expect others to do the service. We expect others to do the work, and then we're quick to criticize them when they do. We need to learn to be as kind and gentle with others as we are with ourselves. So if it's human nature to condemn, it's divine nature to forgive with mercy and grace. story. The king represents God in the story. The servants represent sinners, like you and I, every human being. The multi-million-dollar debt is sin. And so as the king could not hold back his mercy, so God cannot hold back his mercy on people. In fact, Psalm 130, verse 7 says, O Israel, hope in the Lord. For with the Lord there is loving kindness, and with him is abundant redemption. So God, when you came to a point in your life where you couldn't get any lower, and you come to the realization that you're as lost can be, and you cry out to God, and God heard your cry and put you in the presence of people that would tell you how to come back to him. And you did that. You confessed your faith in Jesus. And you came to him in the waters of baptism, and you were immersed for the forgiveness of your sins and the gift of the Holy Spirit. And you came back up a new person, forgiven of a multi-million-dollar debt. How do you treat people when they do something against you and they plead for your forgiveness? The Bible is full of warnings. Hebrew writer says, looking diligently lest anyone fall from the grace of God. All these people that say once in grace, always in grace, they must not be reading the same Bible as I'm reading. That you can actually fall from grace. Looking diligently, let anyone fall from grace. Let any root of bitterness springing up. Bitterness comes from not forgiving. And it causes trouble. And by this, many become defiled. You have been forgiven of a multi-million-dollar debt of sin. I have been forgiven of that. The little petty stuff you may do to me is no more than a $20 debt. How dare I hold that over your head? You can't. You see, the heart of this parable is that forgiveness is extended to those who will forgive. That's the point. God will not forgive us if we are not willing to forgive. You see, forgiveness is not just a nice virtue. According to Jesus, forgiveness is an obligation. It's a duty. Even when he taught us how to pray, in Matthew 6:12, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Forgive us. That's what we're praying in that prayer. Forgive us, God, the way that we forgive others. Now, having said that, sin should not be looked at nor looked over lightly. God doesn't deal with sin that way. He doesn't look at it lightly. Neither should we. So if there's a rebuke that needs to be given, rebuke, and then extend forgiveness. But don't hold on to bitterness. It'll cause trouble in your life. It'll defile you. Get rid of it. Rebuke, extend forgiveness. And so this parable clearly teaches that we're all debtors. No exception. Romans 3:23, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Isaiah 53:6, all of us like sheep have gone astray. Each of us has turned to his own way, but the Lord has caused the iniquity of us all to fall on him. So your relationship to God is one of a debtor to a creditor. That's your relationship with God. You owe him more than you could ever pay. And that's the point of the figure in Jesus' story. No one could pay that amount of money. 10,000 talents. Just to give you a perspective, it was said that the provinces of Judea, Idumea, Samaria, Galatia, and Perea brought in about 800 talents of tax money annually. And this guy had a 10,000 talent debt. More than all the tax money of all those provinces. How much do you owe the Lord? How much do you owe? You breathe his air. You soak in his sunshine. You eat his food. Not to say, at least, you have eternal salvation if you're a Christian. All those things. The debt is enormous. You've had your sins forgiven. What's the wages of sin? In Romans 6:23, death. The wages of sin is death. When you are in sin, you are dead spiritually. Because your spirit is away from God. And that is the essence of death. When we die physically, our spirit is separated from our body. Spiritually, our spirit, our soul, is separated from God. And if you're a Christian, you have come in union with God. That is a tremendous blessing. And so that debt is enormous. What did it take? It took the blood of his precious only begotten Son to pay your debt. Made him who knew no sin to be sin on your behalf so that you become the righteousness of God. That is a huge debt. And you have absolutely no means to pay it off. So the only reasonable thing you can do is to fall on the mercy and the grace of the King, of the Lord, of God, who, by the way, is a very benevolent King, who is quite willing to cancel your debt. Why wouldn't you come to him? Understanding that. Let's pray, and then we'll continue to sing. We'll remember the Lord around his table. We'll be able to bring an offering to the Lord this morning as we talked in the first hour. And, Father, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for canceling our debt. And Father, forgive us. We take our fellow Christian by the neck and hold a debt over them because we're not willing to forgive them. Have mercy on us, God. And we pray this morning that you would expose any roots of bitterness that we may have in our lives. Because, God, we know that bitterness only troubles us. It usually doesn't trouble the person that we're bitter toward. But it affects us. It affects our physical health. So, God, expose those roots and help us to destroy them. And be quick to extend forgiveness to those who need it from us. Father, there may be people here today that the person that they are bitter towards is no longer on this earth. And they're still holding on to that bitterness. But God, I pray that they would give that up. That they would understand that even though that person is gone, they, for their own sake, need to forgive. And get rid of that burden of bitterness. Father, help us to be quick to forgive, understanding that we've had a great debt paid on our behalf because of Jesus. May we be quick to cancel those small debts that people have to us. May we be quick to forgive. We pray in Jesus' name.